tell you, any of you, you could all be hanged for this.
They say that even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Can the same be said of you?
I have not betrayed my God, country, parliament, or my conscience.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 good policies by infamous leaders. For this list, we'll be looking at and recognizing surprisingly positive policies and actions undertaken by a world leader whose other actions have generally led them to infamy. Not every leader on our list is considered a dictator per se, but they were all decidedly polarizing during and after their days of power.
Impalement is a slow process. It can't be done quickly, especially with large numbers. Then he would have been having a meal while he was watching it.
Number 10. Encouraged Romanian patriotism against Russian aristocracy. Vlad the Impaler.
It's all part of his cunning plan to build this image, if you like, this image of power, this image that he's in control.
Vlad III was a Wallachian ruler who would serve as the inspiration for Bram Stoker's classic novel Dracula, while also earning the nickname of Vlad the Impaler after his death. The nickname came from his practice of impaling his enemies on poles as a warning to all who might oppose him. Many Romanians and some Bulgarians, however, saw Vlad as a patriot, standing up to the Russian aristocracy known as the boyars in the region.
There is no doubt that the only way Vlad could get rid of the boyar and cement himself in power was to kill them all.
Additionally, Vlad's military campaigns against the Ottoman Empire were seen by some as attempts to resist those who sought to conquer his beloved region of Wallachia. Number 9. Ended absolute monarchy in England, modernized the English army. Oliver Cromwell.
I am Oliver Cromwell. My men have surrounded your house, and I am looking for royalist scum. Is the king hiding here?
This strong military man was considered many different things by a variety of people, from ruthless dictator to freedom fighter to genocidal madman.
It is the ordinary people, my lord, who would most readily lay down their lives in defense of your realm.
Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell was responsible for innovating modern combat within the English army, introducing a close-quartered cavalry formation, which, alongside Cromwell's natural leadership ability, made the military an even more efficient force against their foes.
We would have been cut off before we were drawn into battle formation. But Lieutenant General Cromwell drew us up into a body, ready to face the enemy.
This commander of the new model army, nicknamed Old Ironsides, would move quickly from deposing King Charles I to becoming one of the most polarizing figures in English history. Number 8. Opened up international trade, was patron of scholars and artists. Ivan the Terrible. This complex Russian leader was a man of contradictions.
Ivan was a man who couldn't keep his composure. He exploded in a moment, did evil, was brutal, was violent.
Simultaneously intelligent and cultured, yet prone to fits of murderous, almost psychotic violence, Ivan the Terrible served as Grand Prince of Moscow from 1533 to 1547. And Tsar of all the Russias from 1547 until his death in 1584. His tendency towards paranoia and mental imbalance made him an unpredictable menace for many Russian citizens. However, Ivan's support of the arts and his willingness to open up Russia to international trade made him a hero to many common citizens of the day.
Напомни ей, что царь Иван на Москве один купец. Всю торговлю в одних своих руках держит.
Number 7. Established meritocracy, protected trade and religious freedom. Genghis Khan.
The earth was soaked with the blood of my warriors.
Born around 1162 with the name Temujin, he was the man later called Genghis Khan, who became emperor of the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan would lead successful military campaigns across Eurasia, while at the same time earning a reputation for his brutal tactics on the battlefield. Khan would also facilitate trade via the Silk Road, while at the same time protecting religious freedom for the areas that would fall beneath his feet. This leader also promoted the idea of meritocracy, which is the idea that power should be given to those with the ability and talent to utilize it, making his rule controversial but efficient. Number 6. Implemented anti-smoking campaigns resulting in decreased usage. Adolf Hitler. The Führer of Nazi Germany suffered from a variety of ailments over the course of his life. But there was one vice in particular which Adolf Hitler sought to purge from German society. The World War I veteran would smoke heavily in his youth, but would later decry the habit as a waste of money.
This is a smoking machine too, although he probably doesn't realize it.
He therefore implemented heavy anti-smoking campaigns to decrease tobacco usage in both civilians and the military. Hitler would even go so far as to reward officers who quit smoking with gold watches and other incentives. Of course, like so many other policies of the regime, the reasons behind the Führer's hardline on smoking were tinged with racism and sexism.
Danke. Es tut mir sehr leid, dass ich Ihnen kein schöneres Geschenk machen kann.
Number 5. Granted free hospital visits, increased literacy rates. Saddam Hussein.
Would you die for President Hussein?
Of course. I will do everything for it.
The 5th president of Iraq has been both an enemy to the United States during the Gulf War and a controversial leader among his own people, ruling over what was considered to be a brutal dictatorial regime.
That fear that he evoked from these people, he enjoyed.
On the plus side though, the prosperity that oil exports brought to the country allowed Hussein and his party to implement free universal healthcare for all citizens. Similarly, Iraq's educational system received a boost during Hussein's reign, subsequently increasing literacy rates. The country's education and healthcare systems were among the best in the region, until the 1980s and 90s when their budgets were reduced by as much as 90% due to economic sanctions and increased spending on war efforts.
Very few people probably felt a loss when Saddam dropped through that trap door.
Number 4. Maintained economic prosperity despite trade sanctions, increased literacy. Fidel Castro.
A bunch of white doves land on his shoulder and arm as he's making a speech. Now, for anyone who knows anything about Cuban religion, Santeria, the white dove is a very significant animal. And this immediately is the signal. Fidel is the deliverer, O Batala, as he's called in that language.
The Fidel Castro-led government of Cuba has had a history of self-sustainability, despite the commercial, economic, and financial embargo by the US that's been in effect since 1960.
It is neither an embargo or a blockade. It is a war.
That's quite a feat. Increased literacy rates were also prevalent within Cuban society during Castro's rule, despite the leader's controversial reputation as a dictator and human rights violator. This, combined with the support of some who view the infamous Cuban leader as a fighter against American imperialism, make Fidel Castro one of the most polarizing figures of the 20th century.
That in those countries, with 25% of the people, or 10% of the people are absolute illiterates, can you speak of freedom there? Is it possible for them to be free? Don't you need some education to do that? Don't you need some culture? Without culture and without knowledge, there's no possibility to attain freedom.
Number 3. Supervised major industrialization, no major invasion after becoming leader. Mao Zedong.
He lacked adequate education, and then he also had an inordinate ambition. And this is a pretty volatile combination, and he really didn't know what to do with himself.
The leader of the People's Republic of China was responsible for millions of deaths due to forced labor and starvation. Yet at the same time, Mao Zedong was a major force in turning China towards its status as a major world power. Chairman Mao supervised major industrialization in China, while at the same time improving conditions for women, education, and healthcare. Additionally, there was no major invasion on Chinese soil after Zedong took power, making this chairman's legacy one marked by controversy and complexity.
Looking at him this way, he was a great historical criminal, but he was also a great force for good.
Number 2. Turn the Soviet Union into a world superpower. Joseph Stalin.
In terms of ruthlessness, bloodlust, Stalin remains one of the greatest villains of the 20th century.
The brutal socialist regime of infamous Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin has been said to have caused the deaths of millions.
If you didn't give total loyalty and visible dedication to Stalin, you could be sent to the cellars of the Lubyanka and executed immediately.
Still, were it not for the efforts of Stalin's government, as a member of the Allied powers during World War II, in which the Red Army's capture of Berlin essentially ended the war in Europe, then the nation of Russia might not have risen to the status of superpower it enjoys today.
The great tragedy of the whole Soviet experience was the sense that people were sacrificing for a day that never came.
Before we reveal our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions from some perhaps not so honorable people.
The young Mussolini's behavior grew ever more outrageous.
In 1894, the 11-year-old Benito stabbed a fellow student with a pocket knife.
Lenin never cared for personal gains. Even his enemies admitted that he fully believed in his cause, living modestly and working tirelessly from his student days until his too early death.
The biggest U.S. concern about Chavez is not his words or his friends, it's his oil. Venezuela is America's fourth largest source of imported oil behind Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico.
Number 1. Eliminated external debt, implemented free education and healthcare. Muammar Gaddafi.
Knowing he's losing $1 billion or $2 billion a year in Western contracts and oil contracts, he knew he had to open up Libya to Western inspectors.
Colonel Muammar Gaddafi took power in Libya via a coup d'etat in 1969, embarking upon a reign marked by heavy restrictions on freedoms of association and of the press. Still, Gaddafi's reign would also have beneficial effects for Libyan citizens, including free education, healthcare, and even the elimination of Libya's external debt. Gaddafi would eventually be deposed, captured, and killed in 2011. This left his legacy as one balanced by two polarizing extremes: Gaddafi, the anti-imperialist leader, and Gaddafi, the totalitarian dictator.
Disloyal, vindictive, and bent on entering history.
Do you agree with our list? Which policies do you feel had the most positive impact? For more surprising top 10 lists published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
They pulled him out of the hole, and one fighter told me that Muammar Gaddafi said to him, "What did I do to you?"